Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Whitfield Report, part 2 of our 2018 midterm election post-mortem, post-election review. And damn, folks, things have changed. Changed a bit since the Thursday show and the roundtable. As of Saturday night at 10 p.m. when I'm recording this intro, Florida, Arizona, and Georgia are all in primary recount, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. And it's pretty tough out there, too. So, that victory that we were talking on Thursday might not be such a victory after all. It's still up in the wind. Who knows? I think Florida could still be, safe for conservatives. I don't know, to be honest. Arizona is not looking good at this point. And as I said, Georgia is up in the air as well. At any rate, folks, for part 2 of this election special, I'm joined by a guy who I've known for pretty much all of 2018, a guy by the name of Cody. You may know him better on Twitter as Meritocracy Bear. Cody and I met when we were part of the Unbearables group, and he's a super good guy, so he's interested in starting a podcast of his own. Reached out to me, and we decided to do this collaborative podcast together. He wanted to come on my show, so I'm happy to have him. And he's just a great guy, loves politics as much as I do. We talk election, we talked podcasting a bit, and just pop culture and, whatnot, too. So, as always, it was great to have him on. I love all my guests, but I especially love when I can talk podcasting with another podcast enthusiast. So, without further ado, here's this week's weekend edition of the Whitfield Report with Cody, aka Meritocracy, for part 2 of our big election special. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to this weekend's edition of the Whitfield Analysis. This is the Saturday edition, live video. Welcome to the show. I am your host, Sam Whitfield, as always, coming to you from South Florida. As always, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @70_NGC, hashtag Whitfield Report, Gab at Sam Whitfield, Facebook.com/Whitfield Report, thesamwhitfield.com is my website. And also, please rate us on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts. We really appreciate that. And I've done the intros in less than 45 seconds, so not bad. Tonight, folks, I am joined by a longtime friend from Twitter. Well, not really that long, but feels like a long time at least. Meritocracy Bear, or I guess Meritocracy now, has decided to finally do a face and name reveal. So, Cody, welcome to the show. And if I can figure out how to put you on screen, we should be good to go. So, welcome. Thank you for coming on.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So, Cody, you are, I've known you for about almost a year now. Not quite. But we met through one of the now defunct Unbearable, I guess, discords, and we've ended up in multiple chat rooms and Twitter groups and whatnot. And you're pretty interesting guy, and you've been really into this midterm election stuff, and obviously we've been covering the midterms here. So first of all, what are your thoughts on just the midterms in general?
Well, it's sort of different now because we don't know what's going to happen with Florida and Arizona, and so that sort of changes things. But the initial response was about what expected. I figured we'd get 53 to 55 seats in the Senate, and then probably lose the House. When the results started coming in, though, I got a little more excited that we might hold the House, because when it started, it looked like the polls were about 3 to 4 points off, biased towards the Democrats. So if that had carried over to the House races, that obviously would have made it a lot closer, even potentially given us, helped us retain the House. But that didn't happen. But now it's hard to say because we don't even know what's going to happen.
No, I mean, I'll tell you what, and I mean, you and I were in the same group conversation during election night. I went back and forth between like sudden panic and then relief, and then sudden panic again during election night, and then I felt relief.
And now you're in sudden panic.
No, at this point I'm kind of like, well, of course, because I guess, and I didn't know this because I'm not a Florida native, but I guess they ever since 2000 they've always done an auto recount, which I did not know that. But again,
in the same counties too. It's the same counties all the time too.
So like, I'm not really in full-fledged panic mode yet, but I'm just. At this point, I'm kind of like, I mean, I still hope it. I still hope it goes in our favor. I feel like this is where election fraud could really, come to bite us in the ass. With Rick Scott still being our governor, I feel like we still have a chance of that not, prepping up as much. But again, I guess at this point for me, like, I'm just at the point where, like, I'm so drained from Tuesday that I literally can't give a fuck emotionally, so I just want to see, I just want to kind of see what happens before I react. So
the last I saw, I think Scott was up like 12,500 votes the last I saw. So I don't know if that means they're actually telling us now what the counts are, because that's one of the laws in the state. Yeah, is that they have to update them every 45 minutes, I think it is. So I don't know if that means they're actually telling us now. Yeah. But the last I saw it was like 12,500, but who knows how many more are they going to find before?
It's not just the Senate race, though. A lot of people don't know this, but even though Gillum conceded the governor's race, I guess...
Yeah, he sort of walked it back.
Yeah, I guess, which I'm like, motherfucker, once you concede, like...
Well, Nelson conceded too, though.
Yeah, I mean, like... But there should be concession, and then there should be like, okay, well... Like, if you don't concede, but I don't think concession should be like a formal thing, unless like the person actually wants to, concede officially. Yeah. If you get what I mean.
I do.
I mean, I don't know. I'm more worried. People are worried about the Senate race. I'm more worried about Gillum being governor, just because, like, obviously,
that's going to have a much more direct effect on you,
right?
Because a lot of things that are going to affect Florida are going to happen on a state level.
Well, so what I'm most worried about is I don't know if he's a fucking idiot, or if he's purposely just if he's a purposeful actual communist, but this is the guy who was praising. This is a guy who was openly praising Jerry Brown and the job that he's done in California. He wants to implement the same exact policies. Andy, I hate to break it to you, but have you seen what California has gone through economically? It's been a shit show for the last probably more than like 20 years now. So if we're being honest,
probably since Reagan was governor, right?
Let me put it this way: it's gotten so expensive to live in California. And by the way, Josh Rogers is here in the YouTube chat, so he can probably speak to this better than anyone else, since he kind of grew up in Hollywood. But it's gotten so expensive in Hollywood. It's gotten so expensive in California now that Hollywood, it's cheaper for them to film all their, stuff abroad than it is in California.
Well, it's cheaper to do everything anywhere else other than California.
I know.
You know what I mean?
But see, that's how fucking insane things have gotten there, and it's like, okay, when this whole way started, I'm like, I knew Gilman was a Democrat, and like I wasn't gonna vote for him, but like up until I heard that he was praising Jerry Brown's economic policies, I was like, okay, he's a Democrat. But then once I heard that, I'm like, oh god.
Well, look at Bernie Sanders though. Like the guy in the mid '80s was talking about how great basically Castro was. 5 years ago, you can still find the essay he wrote. I think it's still on I don't know if it's the Senate.gov or which website it is for the Senate there, but it was like 5 years ago he was writing an essay about how you're going to find more economic equality in Venezuela. This was 5 years ago. This is not like this is something new, and it doesn't seem to bother people.
He's not wrong either. Because
they're just equally poor.
They're equally poor. See, this is the problem, especially with dumb millennials. And again, on behalf of millennials, I kind of have to apologize. But they hear economic equality and they think like everything's going to be having everyone's going to be having iPhone 10s and they think it's going to be a utopia. They haven't read history, so they don't know what actually.
Well, the question is, would you rather live in a country where there's more economic equality? So let's say the top guy's making $60,000 a year, and the bottom guy is making, I don't know, $30,000 a year, and there's $30,000 of inequality. Or would you rather have an economy in a country where the highest guy is making, let's say, $250,000, but the average guy is making 65? Right? There's more economic inequality in the second example, but you're making $30,000 more a year. So there can be a large discrepancy between the high and the low, but still be an overall better situation. You know what I mean? And people it's like you bring that up and people are just either stupid or willfully ignorant. I'm not sure which, but.
Even our poorest poor here, though, are think about it this way. Poor people in this country can still get iPhones. They might not be, it might not be the iPhone 10, but we pretty much live in a society where even poor people can afford pretty, what others would consider luxuries in other countries. Poor people can afford and still afford to live countries.
Yeah, the top one to be in the top 1% in the world. I think it's only like $34,000 a year or something like that. Yeah. To be in the top 1% when you look at it on a global scale, it's like the top 1% of income earners on a global scale is like $34,000 a year. The median income in the United States is what, 55?
Yeah, which I mean, obviously that's not bad. And they always talk about like the top 1% of the 1% and how they need to pay more taxes, and it's like, okay, you're talking at 0.5% of the population.
Yeah, who already pay the majority of the taxes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that even shifts year to year. So, which a lot of people don't take into consideration either. Other than election stuff, you've also mentioned, Cody, that you're going to be starting a podcast of your own. I know you don't have all of the details ironed out yet, but let's just talk shop a little bit, because I don't get to do this with very many people. What kind of drew you into podcasting, and why do you want to...
It's just something I've been thinking about for a long time. So probably at least the year that I've known you, if not longer than that. So it'll probably just start with just YouTube content for a little bit. Right now, time is pretty crunched. I just got a lot going on, so I'll probably just start that way, and then it'll get more focused as time goes on and sort of narrow in a bit to where it's going to be what it's going to be. But yeah. Yeah.
Well, that sounds good, and I'm honestly a bit flattered that you've kind of that you've reached out to me for advice on that. I really appreciate it, because even as long as I'm doing it, I'm still... I think the great thing with podcasting is that it's still such a fluid medium that like everyone is still learning how to figure it out. There's no set standard yet, so
yeah. And part of it is just always feeling like there's something more that we need to be doing. Like there's something more. Like we're not reaching enough people with a conservative message. Like I think Shapiro was talking about this the other day, but it's true when you look at, just to get back to the midterm too, like the group that figures out how to win suburban areas is the group that's going to win, right? And so we have to figure that out. And the more people that can think about it and try and figure out how that's going to happen, obviously the better. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think messaging is a big part too, and not just in politics, but I've noticed a big uptick also in kind of how podcasting has kind of been what's pushed back against a lot of this social justice. I was just talking with my stepdad. I mean, I'm a big fan of Joe Rogan. I've made that pretty apparent that I'm a self-admitted Rogan fan. Well, I don't listen to every single podcast of his, because you can't. There's not enough hours in a day or even in a week to listen to every single one that's like 3 hours long. But at the same time, what really fascinates me about kind of what's been going on with Rogan within the last 2 years, I know that he's more liberal on some subjects, but I generally feel like he's in our camp, simply because he's willing to have a dialogue with people who are on the right, like Shapiro, like Gavin McInnes. The fact that he's even willing to have these people on makes him like a far right winger in the eyes of the left.
Yeah.
And
but that doesn't take much.
Right, and I mean, no, and I agree with you that he's not like a total conservative, but that's what I'm saying. He's not, and yet
he's someone. So did you see Cameron Kasky on either the Ben Shapiro special or on Dave Rubin show? Cameron Kasky's the kid from Parkland.
Yeah, well, is Cameron Kasky the one who's conservative?
He's sort of trying to play the middle of the road right now.
Okay, who's...
You're thinking of Kyle Kashuv?
Yeah, I listened to Kashuv's thing on not the Ben Shapiro, on the Rubin Report, which that was fascinating. I mean, I am going to listen to the Kyle Kashuv thing. It's just right now I'm listening. I just finished the JRE today with Joey Diaz, because who doesn't like Joey Diaz? And now I'm listening to the one between Joe and Michael Mellis, who I haven't listened to much of Michael Mellis, but when I have heard his stuff, it's pretty fascinating. So
yeah. Well, he's sort of like Joe now, right? And he's like sort of trying to play that middle line where he's like, oh, I don't know everything, and I'm just trying to have conversations, and I'm just trying to learn. But when you listen to him, you can tell. My suspicion is he's going to go right back the other way, or it's going to be hidden sort of leftism, if you will. Like when he was on Ben Shapiro's show and they were sort of talking, and he's sort of trying to play the moderate role, and then Ben's like, well, who would you like for, a candidate or a 2020 candidate or whatever? And he's like, Beto. And it's like, well, wait a second. Like that's not moderate at all. Like that's way out in left field.
I can't.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Ben sort of pushes a little further. Well, why is that? And he basically admits, well, I don't really know. I just like him.
Well, I don't know about Joe, but certainly with someone like Cameron, who's a lot younger. He's not as well read, and so he might just be. I think. He's still learning. And I'll say this. I'm pretty much open to talking to anyone. Who, whether they be far left, as long as they're agreeable about it, or, agreeable about having a conversation, or far right. I don't have a problem with conversing with anyone. I'm pretty solidly conservative. I'd say I'm more libertarian on social issues like gay marriage, because I think at this point that's kind of like a moot point. But I think for the most part, I'm pretty conservative, and whatnot. And I think, I also think it kind of depends on what your background is, right? I think, like, Kyle Kashev was already reading political stuff, and he kind of already knew where he was at before he got thrown, and Cameron Kasky kind of got thrown in, and he's trying to decide where he's at, and of course, David Hogg, I almost feel, if there's any truth to the conspiracy that Santok was pre-planned, Hogg's actions would almost, like that. That's the one thing where I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I can kind of see this kid only had like 400 followers and he was verified within like, so. So
I was just going to say, to get back to the midterms a little bit, because I did have some other thoughts about that. One is the 9 people arrested in Texas for the fraudulent voting scheme. So that sort of confirmed something that I had thought anyway. Because like I was saying earlier, when you looked at polling, it was about 3 to 4 points off towards the Democrats in a lot of the Senate races, with some variance. Some were closer, some were bigger spreads than that, but about 3 to 4 points. And then in Texas, somehow, the only state where there was all of a sudden a 4-point bias towards the Republican. It's like, how was every poll 3 points, 4 points off towards the Democrat, and then in the one solidly red state, that was the one poll that was 4 points off in favor of the Republican? Like, that just didn't make sense to me. So I had already had suspicion, and then I saw today they had arrested 9 people and expect to arrest more.
Yeah, I heard about that. What was interesting about the election fraud is that we're still even dealing with election fraud from the presidential election, and not so much with Trump stealing the election, but let's be honest. The fact that Time magazine literally printed an issue beforehand, declaring Hillary Clinton the winner. Okay, that's not suspicious at all. That they had like a whole entire issue ready to go. So yeah, there was voter fraud during the presidential election, but it wasn't, despite all of the voter fraud that happened during the 2016 and Trump still won, like, it just makes me wonder how much bigger Trump won during 2016 if we take away all the votes Hillary.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly thought that if we did retain the House, maybe it was a slim possibility, but if we had the chance, if we had 54 seats in the Senate and still controlled the House, and he got a ton done in the next 2 years, I almost thought he might walk away, and someone like maybe Nikki Haley, and honestly, I think Lindsey Graham it would probably run at that point, because Lindsey Graham seems to be as close to Trump as you can get without being Trump. Like, I honestly think he's already running for 2024.
I love a Lindsey Graham 2.0. Yeah, as we're now calling him.
I think that's what it is. I think he's already running for 2024.
Well, I certainly wouldn't mind. Having this new Lindsey Graham. It's funny. People were making memes like after because he and McCain were kind of buddy, and then people were making memes that after McCain died, it was like the exorcism happened with Lindsey Graham, and he finally came back. Which those memes are funny, but I honestly think that might have been what happened.
Yeah. I think another problem too that we had to think about is that in 2016 there were people who either weren't voting, maybe due to age, but also maybe they just were kind of apolitical and weren't interested, who are now college-age students. It's 2 years later. These are now 19 and 20-year-olds in college, which we know is controlled by the left, right? They're being propagandized on college campuses. Those people are voting now, and that's something else we have to think about.
There are insurgency groups like the Young Americans for Liberty. I don't know if you can see my wristband there. But by the way, I always have to put this out there. Not an official show sponsor, although they should be. And also, groups like Turning Point. The other interesting thing is, Dems have been direct texting college students.
Yeah.
Too. I don't know if you read about that. It happened to me. I got texted by a DNC person. I was already signed up to vote and everything. Like when I moved here, and I first I asked him, I'm like, how the fuck did you get my number? And B, like, okay, Google. I told him, I'm like, okay, Google my name. And then I said, and C, fuck off. So, yeah. But yeah, the fact, so, there are a lot of default, liberals on college campuses, and, that's partially why this podcast exists. But also, the left is actually targeting college students. Right, with their feel-good propaganda. That's why that is one area where I always have to kind of where I always do take issue with boomer Republicans, because they're always like, oh, millennials, they're all liberal, and I'm like, well, okay, okay, why is that though? They've been programmed by the public schools from age 5 to think this way, and it's not like the Republicans really did a good job of influencing culture or education, back when I was growing up, in the late 90s and 2000s. you know, Republicans sucked at it, and I think, you know, kind of bit them in the arse a bit with the older wave of millennials first voting for Obama in 2008. But, you know, it wasn't all that well. It wasn't that unexpected. So
Yeah, I just think that in looking at 2020, when Trump runs again, I think you're going to see people who are maybe 16 years old now who will be 18, you know, at that time. People who are 18 now who will be 20 who will be in colleges that are, you know, teaching them to be leftists. And the people who are 20 now, you know, there's like that whole group of people that is already being propagandized to the left.
Yeah.
And it was pretty interesting. I think it was Shapiro, maybe it was Michael Knowles, I can't remember, but they were talking about some polling that had been done in Texas, and I guess what the poll had said was that people moving to Texas and voting blue isn't as big of a problem as the new voting bloc in Texas voting blue, meaning the people who are younger,
right,
who are now coming of age, are blue, and that's more of a problem even than people coming from places like California and voting blue. So that's not a good thing.
Yeah, and
not for Texas.
And Shapiro knows. I mean, well, same thing is happening here. I mean, again with David Hogg and Gen Z. This is another issue where I kind of have to take issue with Steven Crowder a bit. I mean, I respect him, but he's kind of gone on for the last year about how, to him at least, it seems that Gen Z is more conservative. And I'm like, okay, but he never cites any study, and it's kind of like, okay, well, Stephen, where are you getting that? Well, our listener base is, you know, a lot of 18, and I'm like, okay, well, your show is targeted towards 18 to 25-year-old. So you're going to attract them anyway. And hey, listen, I'm not trying to kid anyone. I mean, my show is pretty, you know, biased. So yeah, obviously I'm going to expect that I get more, you know, conservative, you know, millennials than I do liberal. It's just kind of the way this whole thing works. But I think in general, you know, I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how to look at Gen Z just because I am older now. So
yeah, I think the claim is they're more conservative at this point than any other generation was at the same time. But I still, as you said, I don't know how they come up with that. Like, I don't know what that's based on.
Well, I will say this. This is the one thing that kind of gives me hope for the Democrats a little bit. I say a little bit, like, barely, but I think the far left has gone so far with PC culture and just the outrage mob that, like, even some Democrat kids I know on campus are like, okay, this, like, 57 genders stuff has gone, which, I mean, I think is still pretty good. I mean, it's not great, but, I mean, at least, what I'm hoping at least is that kind of, at least the PC wing of the left will die down. I feel like if we could at least get to the point where the two sides could at least debate and argue again without trying to rip each other's heads off, I feel like we would live in a much better world. But at the same time, I don't really see that happening realistically with social media being so much more prevalent and, you know, just the outrage mob.
Yeah, I mean, Rubin has said it, Sticks has said it, and, you know, the best thing that would have happened would have been for the Republicans to retain the House as far as the rebuilding of the Democratic Party, because they would have had to, right? I mean, if they had gone from projected blue wave to nothing, it would have blown up the party. But I think it's going to be interesting now. I can't tell if they're going to slowly keep creeping further left, or with, like, Trump trying to put in Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. Like, she's already trying to moderate. I mean, she's already talked about not impeaching and that being a bad idea and just things like that. So I think she probably knows.
Which,
and And the other thing too, and it ties together, is like, look at I'm sure you've seen like where they show the exit polling from Texas, where it was like 60% of white women voted for Ted Cruz, and like 90% of black men voted for Beto, and 98% of black women voted for Beto. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
So if they're smart, which they're probably not, they realize, okay, so if you've already got 95% of the black vote, you can only gain another 5%. There's nowhere left for you to go, really. Like, best case, you max out, you get 100% of the black vote. Whereas Republicans have a lot more room to grow, because there's 40% of the white women vote Ted Cruz didn't get. And he could, and theoretically, we could start reaching out and taking votes from the black community. There's a lot more upside for Republicans than there are for Democrats, because when your politics is complete racism and intersectionality, you don't have far to go when you've already got 95% of the black vote.
The thing that's so interesting is the intersectionality with the left has become so polarized that all of the different intersections have started cannibalizing each other, because and like in a weird way, I'm hoping that they cannibalize each other sooner rather than later. Like I'm not one to advocate violence, so so don't misread that.
Not literal cannibalism.
But at the same time, if they cannibalize themselves literally, which I mean we joke, but I mean things have gotten so far. If I mean at some point the Dems are going to have to rein themselves in collectively, or they're going to have to start. They're going to have to start over. It's one of the two.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's weird that you're saying that Nancy Pelosi is the one trying to moderate, because if you had said that Nancy Pelosi would be the moderate Dem 5 years ago, I would have laughed at you. So that's how weird things have gotten, that we're now looking at Nancy Pelosi to be the voice of moderation.
Well, because it's going to fracture, man. They're going to the base and the far left are going to push her to do all the things they want to do, the impeaching and all the nonsense, all the investigations. And if she does, and this is why Trump, I know he said he was being serious at his press conference, but let's be real. Maybe he does think she deserves it. I don't know. But she's going to be an absolute punching bag for Donald Trump if she tries to impeach him or do all this stuff.
Well, here's the interesting thing with Trump. I remember this was a big thing during the election with the whole Never Trump. People think, the media will say that Trump was the one who made the Republicans go further to the right. Okay, that's the whole narrative. But in actuality, it's interesting because I would say that Trump moderated the Republicans perhaps more than anyone else, because he was the one who, during the RNC, openly held a gay pride flag during his convention speech, and basically welcomed in all those gay conservatives into the fold. So, and I think that there are certainly some Democrats like Pelosi who saw that and are like, oh, well, Trump's actually moderating. We're not going to tell other people that he's doing that. But
yeah.
So maybe, it's interesting. Now the Republicans are the quote unquote moderate party in terms of willing to let anyone in, and now the Dems are the exclusive club.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Rubin was doing a live stream the other day for after the, I don't know if it was before or after the election.
Yeah.
And someone had asked him about what's going to happen with the Libertarian Party, and whether that was going to cost us long term, or not long term, cost us short term, having Democrats win, while that sort of fleshes itself out, what's going to happen with because obviously a lot of the votes that are going to Libertarians would otherwise go to Republicans. But it almost seems like the Republican Party is becoming libertarian.
Yeah. Real quick, Brian just put in the comments, gay pride is gay. So, no shit, bro. Brian, and by the way, are you going this year? To gay pride. To gay pride, Brian. The way you act in here sometimes, I don't know. I have to question you. So, but yeah, no, it's very well. I mean, like I said, well, let's be honest. What happened with the Libertarians? I think the Libertarians actually could have been a serious contender in 2016 had Gary Johnson not been the guy who...
I mean, who, though? Like, one of the better Libertarians... I mean, you've got Austin... Is it Austin Peterson?
Yeah.
But even in New York, there was a guy, Larry Sharp, who I thought was a pretty interesting character. And what did he didn't even get 2% of the vote. And I mean, I know it's New York, but still, it's like...
Yeah, what's interesting...
Someone's got to make a leap to at least 10%. I mean, you can't even...
Yeah, see, New York is hard because, like, I actually know a lot of people who are conservative in New York, and people always joke that you're like, oh yeah, you know all 5 people, but yeah, no, man, I mean, there are a lot of people, like, you know, in rural New York, well, you know, and like, you mentioned John earlier, you know, John Neary, I mean, he's conservative, but he doesn't live in Manhattan, so...
Yeah.
I mean, unfortunately, Manhattan and, you know, Albany being, you know, big city areas, that's the reason, you know, Manhattan is arguably the reason why New York is so, you know, far left. So.
Yeah, New York City. I mean, half the population of the state is in New York City, and they all vote left.
Yeah, which is ironic considering that, you know...
It's a total crap hole.
Well, no, New York's not a crap hole anymore. New York is nice. It's just expensive as shit to live there now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Giuliani cleaned it up, but...
Yeah, Giuliani cleaned it up, and now... I think de Blasio is still in there. I don't know. I mean, I've been there like almost 10 times now, so I should know.
I don't really go to cities a whole lot.
I mean, neither do I anymore. I mean, I would say that where I'm at in Florida is kind of like it's kind of like a big town / small city. Hopefully it doesn't go any bigger. I'll tell you what's been scary to watch is Denver and Colorado. You want to talk about a state that used to be, you know, pretty conservative. That's where I'm originally from. I mean, Colorado used to be pretty far red, and then Denver just grew and grew and grew. And
yeah,
like you said, it's the city, and you know now Denver went from like solid red to purple to now deep blue, all within my lifetime.
Yeah.
So,
well, the conservatives will just move out at some point, and then wherever they move will be red, I guess.
But
I mean, there's probably something cyclical to that.
But see, like, that's the other thing is, where do we move to? Everyone keeps saying Texas, but like you mentioned earlier, you know, Texas is not necessarily, you know, lib-proof. I hate to say it to you, Texans.
Yep.
But you know, it's not. So
California, man, they're all leaving. Let's just go right in.
You know what? That's actually not a good idea. That's actually not a bad idea.
There's 55 electoral votes just sitting there waiting for us.
Once the left has left California, Josh Rogers can just go back there and just take over as de facto governor, and we can.
There you go.
We can move in and call and and rename California Danger Zone Nation. So just take everything over. So, but yeah, no, it's. I mean, so I guess where do you think? So I mean, how do you think this whole recount thing is going to shape out? Any predictions at this point?
I really don't. It's so wild. I mean, I haven't checked in a little bit, but it's like I can't even put my phone down. I can't stop checking it. Like I said, the last I saw it was like 12,500 votes. I can't imagine at this point, with all the magic votes they've already found and counted, that there's another 13,000. But I do know that there are already votes that are illegitimate that have been counted. I know that there was a sworn statement, so under penalty of perjury, it was that there were damaged ballots that were filled out without representatives of the campaigns present, which that's against the law. And there was also someone else who, again, I think it was under a sworn statement, that said they saw people filling out blank ballots, were fired, and then told not to come back. So if these two, if I think it's two separate people, maybe it's the same, but either way, if they're lying and if they're caught lying, they've just, I mean, I think isn't perjury? It's a felony, isn't it? Like 5 years in prison.
Oh yeah, perjury is easily a felony. So
no, I know that. I think it's something like 5 years in prison though. Like, isn't felony? It doesn't actually come with a jail sentence.
Yeah, and I believe that is it. That is a felony. So, and the fact that they've already found votes. I don't know if you saw. There was actually like a transcript. I think it was the Daily Caller. There was a transcript that came out from it was the lawyers of Nelson and Gillum objecting to the idea that a illegal citizen vote shouldn't count, and they objected. They're literally arguing to count votes of people who aren't citizens. So because they found like 20 of them in a batch of like 208 votes, they found like 20 of them. So it's like, how many of those are there? And I saw some. I don't remember who it was. If it was Charlie Kirk, someone was tweeting out that there's like 2.75 million people in the country who are registered to vote in multiple states. Yeah, well, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I've seen people on my college campus who they're always the ones during election season who always ask students, "Hey, are you registered to vote?" And I've seen them with stickers that have Hillary for president. Now, my school's policy is that for that, because I looked into it, the people who sign up to do election stuff aren't allowed to wear regalia, promoting one candidate or the other, one party or the other, and yet they do it. So I actually called them out on it and and the guys tried to slink away, and they basically tried to avoid me questioning them with my phone in my hand, because I was filming them, and and that was just one school. I don't know how many people they signed up, and it doesn't really mean anything. It's just that I was able to show up, but it's scary how much voter fraud is going on.
If I had to guess, I think the elections hold up in Florida. I mean, that's a guess. It's not.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that that's only because Rick Scott is governor right now.
Well, and he's not letting it go, obviously.
Right.
I'm less sure about Arizona than I am about Florida.
Oh, bro. Oh, I mean, I've been talking to Brian for a bit. He's shitting bricks over what's going on, and
well, I'm pretty sure McSally has filed a lawsuit as well. I mean, it's not getting any coverage really, but I think there's stuff going on there too. It's just not getting the same coverage.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's put it this way. I mean, someone tweeted out, and I actually think that this could be true. I forget who tweeted it out, but someone was saying that Florida is a distraction for the
Arizona.
Yeah,
I saw that. Yeah,
okay,
I saw that. Well, in Georgia too. I mean, aren't they looking at the governorship in Georgia now again?
Yeah, and I was in. Yeah, I'm in a group. I'm in a group on Facebook that's nationwide for conservatives. We have a lot of people in Georgia, so that race was, it's crazy. So
because that's going to matter when it comes to redistricting in the future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So and then of course, Florida, Georgia. There's a thin border. So
yeah,
it's crazy that Georgia could even go liberal because that's supposedly part of the Bible Belt where people are mostly
yeah. I mean, I haven't looked at the 2020 map or anything for as far as the Senate goes, but if we lose both seats, that's trouble because obviously that loses a cushion. The seat in Alabama, I know, will be up, and it sounds like Jeff Sessions, I guess, is talking about running for his old seat that he left to take the Attorney General job. So, I mean, we'll get that one back, but
which I actually think if that's true, that was a good move on Sessions' part.
Yeah, he'll win walking away. It won't even be close.
Where I mean, I don't want to dox you. Where are you?
But you're gonna?
Well, I don't know. So,
what was the question?
Where are you in all of this? Or I guess a better part would be what part of the country are you?
I'm in Vermont.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I know all about Bernie.
Well, yeah, you know about Bernie, but I did not know that until literally 5 seconds ago. So
yeah, we actually just our governor is a total rhino, but he at least he beat out. You must have seen we had the transgendered candidate running for governor. Diane Hellquist.
I saw that. Well, Colorado has its first openly gay governor, so which that's not so much of an issue to me as much that he's a big lefty from Boulder. So
yeah, well she's Bernie. He is Bernie Sanders. He's Bernie Sanders in a dress, but same policies. And it's crazy because even this state has been democratically controlled for 30 years. I mean, even the far left, Peter Welsh, who's he's the representative for Vermont. They spent $1 million to study whether they could do universal health care on a state level. And everyone, even the far left people in Vermont, said, nope, it'll bankrupt the state. And this person is like, nope, we're doing it anyway. Like that was like part of this person's platform. And everyone in Vermont was like, no, like that can't happen. Like you will bankrupt the state in a second.
The irony that they even spent $1 million to research that. I mean, that's ironic in and of itself that it cost $1 million to research this shit. So
yeah, you'd think it would just take like addition and subtraction.
I could have given them like 3 books on basic economics for like.
I could buy a calculator at Staples for $5, and I told them.
Yeah, no, it won't work.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned Tucker Carlson a little.
Oh yeah.
I don't want to jump around too much, but you mentioned.
No, that's fine.
You mentioned the Daily Caller and whatnot. Did you see what happened? Yeah. Well, I guess there was no footage, but did you hear what happened with Tucker Carlson? And
No, there was. You're talking about at his house?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was footage. You didn't see that? It was on Twitter.
Oh, there's footage?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, you couldn't see a lot. It was dark, obviously, and they were just screaming in a bullhorn and yelling and stuff. But yeah, there was footage of it. I don't know if it's gone now, but it was there. Um, but yeah, that's pretty nuts.
Yeah. I mean, so.
And then they say you can't own an AR-15. That's like, oh yeah.
Well, okay, it's not even that for me. I'm like, okay, this whole thing with Tucker Carlson happened, and that was kind of pushed to the side. Meanwhile, the left is getting their panties in a bunch and saying that Trump is attacking the First Amendment because he finally I knew this was going to happen before the year was out too, because Acosta just kept pushing his luck and luck and being aggressive. That was the big news story though, that Trump is attacking the First Amendment because he kicked. Which, first of all, he didn't kick Jim Acosta out Secret Service, because Acosta pushed that White House staffer, or something, and Secret Service followed protocol and.
Which it's like, don't get me wrong, it's not like the guy punched her in the face. I get it, but and I don't know that it even constitutes something like assault, right? Because if touching somebody else, he really didn't.
Well, but
it's not like he shoved her even. You know what I mean? I think it was sort of reactionary. But regardless, the fact is, it was pretty much established. You get a question, we move on, unless Trump grants you a follow-up. And he asked a question, it got answered, Trump wanted to move on, he tried asking 4 more questions, which weren't even really questions, it was just him arguing. It was like, okay, we're done here.
He was being rude to his fellow, journalists in the room, too. Like, the other guy had the mic, and, I didn't see it, but you can kind of inference it off camera that Jim Acosta goes over to the guy and grabs the mic out of the other guy's hand and keeps asking questions. Now I wish someone would have gotten footage of that, because that is assault, yanking, I think, forcefully yanking the mic out of another guy's hand. So,
yeah. And as far as Tucker Carlson goes, I think it's so funny because I don't think of Tucker Carlson as being very far right at all.
Yeah,
I really don't.
So yeah, that's something I did want to ask you about. So I haven't had a chance to watch or listen to the Carlson Sunday special, although I'm going to probably after this. But you're one of the only conservatives I know who does. You and you're one of the only conservatives who I know who doesn't really. I don't want to say you don't dislike Tucker Carlson, but you don't love him either.
Sometimes I like him and sometimes I don't. When you listen to that interview, you'll hear, he says something, and then when Ben tries to disagree, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth through the whole interview, and it was just like, oh yeah, I agree, but then I disagree. I'm trying to remember what the point that was brought up was. One of the points was brought up, and he flat out told Ben, that's just a talking point, and it's not. I think they were talking about accountability, you're responsible for your choices, and he was arguing not. There's luck, right? The circumstances of luck are involved, and so you're not really that accountable. I'm paraphrasing for your choices,
right?
And it's like, well, wait a second, that's not just a talking point. You absolutely are. You're not wrong in that people have different levels of circumstance, but to then say that because your circumstances are different or whatever, that you're not accountable for the choices you make, that's just ridiculous.
Was he maybe trying to play devil's advocate and then just
No, I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so.
Okay,
you'll have to listen to it, but
yeah, I'm certainly going to.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't have cable anymore. I just have a giant internet pipe, and I just have Netflix and and then and Amazon, and then like for news and whatnot, I just go off YouTube. So like I've never actually seen Tucker's full show, which I mean,
well, and watch him. He just did they called it a debate. It wasn't a debate because I felt like they agreed a lot of the time. But watch, and he never questioned him the whole time. He never pushed back on him. Watch his debate at Politicon with Cenk from TYT from the Young Turks. He never pushed back on him. Cenk would just say the most stupid crap, and he wouldn't even push back on it. Like he just let him go, and it's like, okay, I understand you're trying to, I guess, play the moderate role, but come on, if the guy says something that's outright foolish, then you need to tell him it's foolish.
I wonder how much though, because I mean I've been podcasting, and I not to brag, I mean I have met people in the media business, and I honestly have to wonder how much of Tucker's behavior is the Fox News top brass basically saying, okay, we're, now that you represent us, you have to act in this way, because I certainly know from listening to Gavin McInnes talk, Gavin has pretty much said that after, and I mean even Rush has said this, that basically after what's his face? Roger Ailes. After Roger Ailes passed away, he was the one who started Fox. After he passed away, and I guess whoever replaced him as head of Fox is now trying to moderate him. Is trying to moderate it more, so to speak.
It could be. Have him sort of play, I mean, I guess if you've got Sean Hannity, maybe they're having Tucker Carlson sort of play the middle guy.
Yeah, I mean, cable news is such a weird, I mean, that's the other thing I like about podcasting is, even like, in Fox News, there's still a news group, whereas like a lot of podcasters, unless you're unless you're one of the New York Times podcaster, you're actually like one of those big podcast companies like, Vox or Gimlet or something like that. I mean, a lot of podcasters on both the left and the right, whether you agree with them or not, are purely independent for the most part. So,
yeah.
Well, any final thoughts that you
Nothing I can think of. I think we got it all, man.
Yeah. Well, once you submit your podcast ideas a bit more, and we can talk for a bit after the show. But once you have more ideas, I'd love to have you come on and promote your new show and let me know and let the audience know what's happening with that.
Sounds good, buddy.
Alright, thank you for coming on, and folks, thank you for watching. I'll be back on Monday for part 3 of the election special coverage. I rarely do a Monday show, but I think we're going to need to do it. And Owen. Wait, Brian, did Owen actually mention me in one of his streams recently that I'm all right? Brian is saying that Owen Benjamin told me that Whitfield Reporter is all right. If that's true, first of all, Owen declined my invitation to come on here back when I liked him. But even so, if he's now suddenly remembered who I am, well then I'm gonna have to straighten that 6-foot giant out. So, but oh yeah, Brian, I am gonna send the link. Hold your horses. So he wants me to send you a link to the new Danger Zone.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay. Well, at any rate, folks, thank you for watching / listening to the show. As I mentioned, we'll be back on Monday. So from all of us here at NGC1, Good night. God bless. God save this great nation. And we are out of here. Alright, folks, and as I mentioned at the end of the main show, I will be back on Monday to do a third part of the midterm post-analysis. As I said, I never do a show on Monday, but I will. Monday is also Veterans Day, so I'll be sure to do something with that as well in the same episode. Hopefully we'll have this midterm thing figured out by then, folks, but I honestly don't know. Hopefully it'll be resolved in our favor for Florida. That's all I can say. Alright, folks, as always, thank you for tuning into the podcast. If you would be so kind, please support us on Anchor by clicking the link or tapping the support icon in your podcast app, whichever you have. And please supporting this podcast. It really helps me out. And if you're unable to support the show, at the very least, financially speaking, please tell your family and friends about the podcast. That always helps out tremendously. And please leave us a rating and review on iTunes as well. Those two things really help us out. And as always, folks, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on Monday for the conclusion of this election special. From all of us here at NGC1, God bless and God save this great nation wherever you are in the past, present, future hour.